What's going on, Tamers? East here, finally back, conquered the plague, no longer sick, but I got back to locals last week, and I'll tell you what, I'm sick of Veemon. Oh boy. Trying to play Veemon when you're burning cards into the trash and then playing Digimon from the trash onto the board thanks to your War Grandma's effect, when your opponent has a 97-foot crocodile lying in wait on the other side of the board, is not a good experience. EX8 cannot get here fast enough. X, please save me. Oh my god. Setting aside my crocodile tears for just a moment, we are in our 7th week of the BT19 Xros Evolution set over here in Asia. And the qualifying events outside of Japan have just started to wrap up. I think we finished up Thailand, Singapore, and the Philippines within these past like 2 or 3 weeks. And with a couple more to go still, but some really interesting lists to come out of the event results we do have so far. And in Japan, we've also got the second area store qualifiers happening all over the country, so lots of cool lists to look at for those as well. That being said, let's take a look at some event results, a couple of key takeaways, and a close look at some of the decks that topped over the course of the past week. So diving into last week's results, similar to week 6, Omnimon here taking top spots again with this impenetrable wall. And honestly, like I mentioned in the intro, with decks like Veemon, Red Hybrid, Mirage Galgamon, and the likes running around, honestly, I'd want the safety too. The battle area is a no man's land right now. Checking out the rest of the pack though, it's a lot of the familiar faces we've seen before and things like Mirage, Red Hybrid, Lugamon. Also saw some signs of life from Purple Hybrid last week, as well as the Grace Nova engine cards, more like the toolbox version of these decks. When I looked at them, none of them seem to be running any like the Mirage turn loop stuff, so I think it is just like the red-blue toolbox sets. Also, keep in mind that some of these events are from the second area qualifiers happening here in Japan, but I believe that the biggest drop of event results for those are going to be happening next week, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on next week's meta report, because that's going to be a big one. Outside of some of these tournament staples, there were some really interesting tops from decks like Omnimon Ace, Numemon, Mastemon, and even Lucemon, some of which we'll take a look at in just a moment, so stay tuned. Also, shout outs to whoever out there got that one win with Galgamon, because it sure as hell wasn't me. I'm renaming my locals the Bayou because all I fight are alligators. I thought Lugamon was like my only really bad matchup, but man, whoo, did I learn something last week. So taking a closer look at some of the decks that topped over the course of last week, the first one that I wanted to highlight was definitely the Thailand regional winner, Kids, running his Imperial Digimon blue-green deck. So here's a cleaned up version of the list that's a little bit easier to read, I hope. I also looked for the tournament stream here. I wanted to see what Kids Run looked like to actually get his top spot. Unfortunately, there was no Digimon stream for the Thailand event, it seems like, based on their webpage on Facebook. I saw one for One Piece, but I couldn't find anything for Digimon, unfortunately. However, I think you can glean a lot of information based on the splits from Kids' list of what he was worried about during that tournament run itself. There's some really interesting one-ofs and splits in this deck. For example, the EX1 X Veemon, the one copy there, who has jamming, which means you can swing really early in the game. And so when you're fighting against decks that like to hide in raising, you can put on a lot of pressure early on using this card here. There's also the BT19 Xros who can swing over smaller threats using his raid ability, gives plus 2k in inheritance, and has the ability to give out unkillable by battle for a turn. A very nice effect once you build that second stack. If you look closely at the list, you'll notice that Wormmon has almost been entirely eliminated from this deck. You see the 2 copies of the BT16 Wormmon who can reuse level 4s from the trash, but only 1 copy of the Searcher Wormmon from BT12. Perhaps with the addition of the 2 new Jade memory boosts, which can search out blue or green Digimon cards from the top 3, he felt that the Wormmon wasn't as useful as before. Outside of its regular gameplay, on the top end, this deck also focuses on the starter deck Imperial Digimon Dragon mode as a way to build a second stack immediately once you hit your level 6. I think this strategy was actually popularized in the West and has now made its way back to Asia. Pretty cool how that happens, huh? This is one of the reasons I'm really excited for Unification, because we'll get to see this happening a lot more. If you look closely, you'll also notice the 1 copy of the BT12 Imperial Digimon Fighter mode as well as a way to get huge removal, security attack plus, huge DP buffs, as well as blocker. And so looking at the stats, if you really looked at all the cards here, and if Kids really needed to, he could put together like a 21,000 DP Digimon at a moment's notice. In the past, I think that decks that did present themselves as big walls were a bit troublesome for Imperial Digimon. But with all of the big numbers here, as well as his proven track record, I think it's definitely worth giving Kids' list a shot. Machine Digimon in 2024? Unheard of, and yet here we are. So taking a look at this list, it's kind of hard to see some of the cards because they're kind of like smushed behind a few of the ones that you can see. So I cleaned up this list a little bit, and I made one guess on a single card that was behind this Gigadramon here. I'm assuming that this is a Mega Dramon who lets you destroy Tamers. So with that short disclaimer out of the way, here's the cleaned up version of the Machine Dramon list. And honestly, the lower end really hasn't changed much at all. I mean, a couple copies of Hagurumon as well as Dorumon as a way to search out through the deck. And the Dorumon has a really nice inheritance effect of giving you +1 memory whenever its source cards get increased. You've also got some really cheap evolves or cheap play cost cards from level 4s like the BT2, I think it is, Numemon, as well as the BT3 Tankmon. I'm really stretching my Digimon knowledge right here. The level 5s are where things get a little bit weird because it feels like this person tried to jam in as many Metal Greymons as they could possibly find, where you've got, I think, 6 different Metal Greymons here. In the starter deck, Black Metal Greymon who gives Sec +1. You've got the BT19 Metal Greymon, I think it is, who is D-Digivolve and then can attack unsuspended Digimon. You've got the other EX4 Metal Greymon who gives Blocker, and you've also got the Secret Rare Greymon who gives +3k, and we never swing with him ever, as well as the starter deck Metal Greymon who has the Metal Greymon who gives +3 memory whenever an opponent's Digimon blocks him, and also the EX1 Metal Greymon who gives piercing, I believe it is. Your boy is struggling right now with these card numbers. The rest of the level 5s are a bit more standard with some of the new hybrid cards like the Daipinmon and the Jet Sylphimon who both give +2k on both turns, which is super nice. You've also got the older Metal Tyrannomon can give Reboot, the old Metal Mamemon who can pop cost 5 or lower Digimon, as well as the one copy of the EX7 Gigadramon who has the coveted Collision ability, allowing you to combo that with the Metal Greymon we talked about before to get +3 memory whenever you attack. We also can't forget that coveted Rapidmon from the starter deck who can let you discard an opponent's security whenever you destroy one of the Digimon by battle. Him plus the Metal Greymon who lets you attack opponent's unsuspended Digimon is a godsend. The game plan for this deck is pretty much still the same. Collect level 5 Cyborg Digimon and then play a level 6 that bolts itself down to the battle area and refuses to leave. Looking at the tamers, I think that in the past these decks tried to fit in cards like the Marvin Jackson tamer card who could Mind Link, as well as things like the Black Tie tamer who could buff up your Digimon whenever they had to redirect attacks. But this list goes with a super simple tried and true Analog Man 4-0, and that's it. Of course, Analog Man just a really good card for a nice card draw, nice memory, and some good cycle, as well as a way to help you play Machine Dramon whenever one would leave the board. Honestly, as someone who's a really big fan of Machine Dramon myself, it's really cool to see people still putting up the fight with this deck. Each week, I allow my champion level and higher YouTube members to vote on decks they want to see featured in these Meta Report videos. And this week, it was a close one, but they chose to see Omnimon Ace. If you like to vote on decks that you want to see covered in these kinds of videos, as well as some other cool perks and bonuses like early access to my content, as well as access to all of my stream VODs, consider becoming a YouTube member as well. And with that, let's take a look at Omnimon Ace. Honestly, I'd probably consider Omnimon Ace Digimon's first patented trap deck, where all you do is set up a level 6 and then your one copy of the Miraculous Mega Knight option card and you're good to go. It's also really easy to get into the level 6s, and you can do that either through your BT14 or 15 War Greymon or Metal Greymon respectively, who can warp from a level 3 if your opponent has a 10k or higher DP Digimon on board. You've also got the new BT17 Metal Greymon and War Greymon who can just play themselves at reduced cost. And then you can use the red and blue Matte and Tie Tamer to further reduce that cost whenever they're played or evolved into. The lower end of the deck really just wants to amass cards, whether you're using things like the BT12 Agumon or the EX4 Black Gabumon. You've also got the BT17 Agumon and Gabumon cards who can either get cards back from trash or draw cards if you've got the correct tamer set up. The deck also has some decent destruction using the 4 copies of the super blinged out Greymon on the top right hand side there, who can evolve and then destroy something, and then whenever they're destroyed you can either play a tamer down for free or hatch one of your eggs in the raising area. And then finally, with your level 6 setup and the option card set as well, if your opponent tries to remove that level 6, you can either use the option card to evolve DNA into Omnimon in hand with the other level 6 you have there as well, or if they try to attack, you can just blast DNA Digivolve at the same time. Also, yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention this, but doing that will just eat your opponent's entire board. So yeah, it is to your advantage to get that Omnimon down to just wipe your opponent's entire field. Taking a look at the tamers for just a moment, the Black Tie is a great card to get over some 15k wall if you've got an Omnimon down on the board, where typically he's going to be about 15k himself. Using the +2k from the tie is always going to help you scale that wall. And if you really need to, you can also use Agumon in Sources, who gives +2k from the BT14, I believe it is. So you'll be able to get up to like 19k with an Omnimon in this case. You've also got the Tai and Kari 3-cost tamer there, the 2 copies that allow you to essentially at end of turn play down one of the other Tai tamers or Tai name tamers in hand for free, which is kind of a nice little reduction of at least 1 memory, and at the same time you're going to get a little bit of card draw out of it as well. And then finally, the Digimon Kaiser harkens back to like the Numemon days. Oh, actually not that long ago, TBH. But it's a good way for you to slow your opponent down from just pulling out of raising with level 3 and then just like building a huge stack in a single turn. This will at least force him to spend a little bit more memory to get that level 4, and that'll push back that turn where they want to go crazy a little bit further into the future. If you're the kind of player who likes to watch your opponent squirm when you put them in really tough situations, then Omnimon Ace is definitely the deck for you. Honestly, now that I think about it, all those Veemon players, well, I got something for them. And so with that, we're going to bring week 7 of the BT19 Xros Evolution set over here to a close in Asia. Again, a really interesting time right now. We've got a lot of the big events happening, lots of exciting events happening in the regionals. Remember, next week we're going to have, I think, the biggest drop for all of the secondary qualifiers in Japan. So make sure you're subscribed so you know exactly when that video goes live. And also, I think we're like, what, 2 weeks away from Chains of Liberation at this point? I didn't realize it was that close. It's like the end of next week, TBH. Yeah, I still gotta sit down and put together what decks I want to build. I know Gallimon is like the clear #1 choice, but outside of that, there's a lot of other really cool stuff in that set. Like the Deep Saver stuff, if you've been a like aquatics lover for a long time, I think this is like your big payoff. Anyways, folks, I'm gonna get out of here. Before you get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. All those Veemon players, I got something for them.